getting started as we speak. So let's go ahead and head on over. All right, mulligans here. I imagine Kindred's gonna get tossed back into the deck. Like, I feel, is this deck just strictly better if Kindred's not in it? Like, is that what we're going with here?
That is the general consensus among the community, which is why Kindred is not in your traditional build. But obviously the TankBuster sees something in Kindred, right? So it's not like he's going to look at this and be like, oh man, this is just like the worst card in my deck, I should mulligan it every time. Is going to mulligan it here because it's not particularly useful against a Lee Sin deck.
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, listen, I'm the first one to tell you I want it to work, but we haven't really seen it be too impactful. So let's see if we do draw it a little bit later. But for now, we do have the Burgeoning Sentinel to start the game. Always a good start, followed by Elise. So again, we saw this before with another Zoe Lee Sin matchup, Boulevard. The TankBuster has the opportunity to put on the early aggression here with these fearsome units.
Yeah, we saw it. I mean, we saw this matchup a little bit earlier. We saw it come down to an absolute nail biter where the Lee Sin had to top deck a guiding touch in order to get out of the situation. We saw how much work these Burgeoning Sentinels get to do against these Eye of the Dragons. It's already two fearsome blockers, or fearsome attackers rather, established. And that is something that Lee Sin does not have a lot of, is fearsome blockers. Now, we do have Pale Cascades. That's going to make the Dragonlings infinitely more effective. And we are going to be able to get double Eye of the Dragon here if we want to. But instead, I'm going to go for a Zenith Blade.
Yeah, and this is pretty typical of Lee Sin decks, right? A lot of times if we don't have the greatest hand to start, namely, you know, missing something like a Lee Sin, we start to pillar on the Eye of the Dragon. We also do now have the ability with something like a Pale Cascade to commit the Eye of the Dragon as a fearsome blocker on the defensive at some point. So I do like this from Deriva, just at least opening yourself up to options to make sure that you don't just take a whole ton of fearsome damage to the face one of these turns. I'm curious to see if we get what we use this Thermo Beam on, because when we keep seeing TankBuster play Boulevard, I feel like we just keep seeing TankBuster rip like 5, 6, 7 mana Thermo Beams on just like random stuff.
Doing what Thermo Beam was meant to do. He's like, I'm not
blow stuff up.
I'm sending 10 mana straight into your unit, and I know that there is nothing outside of deny that you can do to save it from this.
All right, so using one of those Pale Cascades already kind of preemptively, so I'm not crazy about that. Just I guess it does get the Dragonling, but it does just kind of give us one less Pale Cascade to use one of these times to block with.
Lee Sin off the top for Deriva does mean Deriva is no longer really like hard stalling towards anything. Mystic Shot onto the Dragonling in order to activate these Sentinels.
Yeah, and we do have a Thermo Beam that's going to do 4 damage now. That's not really going to help us versus this Eye of the Dragon here, so Aloof Travelers might be the play. And Discipline or Fortitude to save the Dragonling. Okay.
What are the odds over under on TankBuster just thermoing
Oh, we're doing
Dragon?
it. Oh, we're doing it. We're doing it. I don't see why not. With how TankBuster has played Thermo Beam today, oh, come on. You got to, right?
You got to?
3, 6, 7. That's 8 damage.
This is sort of like the aloof turn, right?
Oh man, I mean this would be nice, yeah, because you're gonna hit Lee Sin anyways. Like I don't necessarily see Deriva playing Lee Sin next turn, or maybe
it's with 2 mana. It's very risky to play Lee Sin because you could just walk into another Thermogenic Beam, especially if your opponent is just throwing one of these out onto a Dragonling. People do get a little bit, much like Deny, players get a little bit more loose with their Thermo Beams when they have multiples, because it's like, okay, you know, I don't really want to rip these off in back-to-back turns. That's very large mana commitment, so I want to use the first one pretty effectively. The second one I can save for a big thing, but when you've only got 2 mana, unless you have 2 copies of Gifts from Beyond, you're not saving Lee Sin from Thermo Beam on turn 5. And we're actually going down to 0 mana so that we can get a Dragonling next turn. So Lee Sin almost certainly not getting played from Deriva. Don't want to open that up to just get hard Thermo Beamed when you have no mana.
Yeah, and again, this is why I loved the Zenith Blade early on. That Pale Cascade was huge in not just giving you this Dragonling, but also enabling a fearsome blocker. So definitely in a much better position here for Deriva, staving off a lot of that early aggression and going to heal up a little bit too. Nothing that the TankBuster can do. We got the Buru actually in hand. Maybe we can toss him down on board, get another Slay off. That might be good, but I think Aloof Travelers is the play this turn.
It's either Aloof or it's just run out back-to-back 5-drops, right?
Mm-hmm.
You could play like Vi here, play Kindred next turn. You don't necessarily know whether or not your opponent has the Lee Sin. Now, a lot of the Lee decks have started to cut things like Scattering Pods, so Lee will almost always be the most expensive card in their hand, barring a full mana Deep Meditation.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, you have knowledge of when Deep Med is discounted, right? Like we know the 2 spells were played, so it would be a good opportunity to play it. But we do see the Vi come down. Vi gonna do a good job of getting rid of potentially this Eye of the Dragon here. This is so I love watching this deck play, Boulevard, because like it's so weird. It's a control deck, but then every single time we've seen this deck play, it just is so aggressive early on.
I mean, we put it into control as a broad classification because if you tell me to pick an archetype, this definitely isn't an aggro deck.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely not a mid-range deck. Like, it masquerades as control deck, but that doesn't mean that it is hard knit into playing like this, like the old Karina piles where your only units are Ladros and Karina and Elise Vi. Like, it doesn't play like that.
Yeah.
So when we say control, we don't mean it in like a very rigid sense because the deck is very flexible. That is sort of the big power and draw to it, and why this Skaithis pile, as it has been deemed by most members of the community, has stuck around for multiple metas.
Well, we have another Thermo Beam, so we'll see how this gets used. Instead, we're going to go with the Kindred for some quick attack action here. So that would negate any of the lifesteal if the Dragonlings are committed as blockers, and would potentially trade with an Eye of the Dragon unless Twin Disciplines comes out to save one of them. So looking to be another pretty strong attack here from TankBuster. With only 1 mana left, I mean, is this where, I was just going to say, is this where you just jam down Lee Sin? And I think this is a very safe Lee Sin. I think this is really good for Deriva, being able to get this down for free and going into a turn where we might be able to level him up.
Yeah, and we're actually, if we can level him, I think we're looking at lethal.
Yeah, yep.
With the Zenith Blade and the Twin Disciplines, he's at 6 out of 8, so the 2 spells that give him Challenger and Barrier are going to just level him. And of course, with the Gifts from Beyond rather in hand, we do have the opportunity to give him Barrier this turn if that's something we need, if Vi challenges him or something along those lines.
Yeah, this is kind of what we figured, right? We're going to pull one of these Eye of the Dragons, get rid of this Dragonling train that we keep seeing. We could
This is actually going to kill both eyes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Thanks to Kindred Slay. Yeah. And I was just going to say, we could go in with everything here, but that does allow for a block out of the both Spiderlings, actually.
Yeah, both Spiderlings are getting blocked. Lee Sin probably going to get to trade something for free. Maybe the idea is that this is a little awkward.
We could even technically hush the Kindred and... Well, no, that wouldn't matter. Never mind. We don't have anything that's going to be able to kill it. All right, we're going to Gifts from Beyond. See what we grab. I imagine. Actually, I was going to say I imagine Crescendo, but honestly...
We're past the point of Eye.
Yeah. We're not at that point anymore, so let's see what we get. It's going to be Infernum.
Infernum.
Okay. All right, I like that. Getting ready for a big Lee Sin kick for some lifesteal. Got also Guiding Touch here, and a Will of Ionia gained. There's the level up.
Looks like we're going to take the kill onto Kindred with the Lee Sin in order to stop the Eye from dying.
Yep, there it is. Yeah, and I mentioned Hush, but I knew there was like some way to organize this so that Kindred could die. And yeah, I think TankBuster with that Darius emote, understanding now that, man, I totally forgot that if Lee Sin levels it's going to be able to trade. Yeah, so feels bad. And I think with that play, I think Deriva is very much in control. Another reason why we didn't see the Crescendo picked, right? Like, we have an Eye of the Dragon that's going to stick around now thanks to Kindred dying. And unfortunately, still not seeing Kindred's effect do anything to affect the board state. Continues to not do much. I do think Deriva is going to be able to take it here. And it's going to start with, Zenith Blade.
Yeah, no protection for the Lee Sin if we do go for lethal here. But there's nothing in TankBuster's hand in order to stop it. Just kind of clogged up on Booer Sentinels at this point. See if we can draw something off the Travelers, but it's a Ruination. Way too expensive to come down this turn. Third Eye picked up for Deriva again. Past the point of Eye of the Dragon. And with only 4 mana left on the side of TankBuster, I would imagine Deriva's just going for the lethal with the Discipline of Fortitude.
Yep, there it is. It's exact lethal. I gotta go back to the multiple turns too that TankBuster did not play aloof, because this is the only Lee Sin we've gotten all game, right? If Aloof Travelers was played, it would have been discarded quite some time ago, and this would have been a completely different game, Boulevard.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to know when to play Aloof Travelers against Lee Sin specifically. Against a lot of decks, you just say, oh, I play it the turn before the big threat comes
down. It's turn 6. Scion comes out next turn. Yeah, yeah.
But Lee Sin doesn't come down on turn 5 most of the time.
Yeah.
So if your opponent does have a bad hand, you're just kind of helping them fix it, and maybe you'll discard like their Will of Ionia or their Concussive Palm.
Yep.
Lee Sin is definitely one of the harder decks to figure out the aloof timing on, because yes, you can just throw it down on turn 4, and if they have the Lee Sin, it'll hit it, and that's probably the most correct way to do it most often. But it's not a guaranteed thing, and you really feel bad if you play that card and help your opponent out of a bad situation and dig them a little bit deeper to a Lee Sin that they don't have.
Now, and that's actually, I think, that Sentinel Control lost the first matchup versus Lee Sin as well that we saw earlier, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
that one was closer, though.
That one was much closer, but it's seemingly, it's seeming to me that that matchup is a little bit hard for the deck in particular. It's had some other good games versus some other decks, so I'm curious to see how it does here. Versus now we get some Plunder action, and we saw it handedly deal with Plunder last time around, Boulevard, like super quick.
Turn 6?
Yeah, oh my god, that was a quick game. Let's see if it does the same thing here.
Ooh, Aftershock. There are some good nab targets in this deck between Atrocity, Ladros, these burn spells, even Thermogenic Beam, not terrible to deal with something like the Vi or the Kindred, any of the other threats that this deck is putting out. Ruination definitely works a lot better when your opponent doesn't know you're running it. So if you just nab it from the bottom of their deck.
Yeah.
Because this is a fairly unit-heavy version of Control, right? I think a lot of the Shadow Isle Control decks that we've seen more recently, with the exception of Field of Rush, have been pretty unit-heavy. Thinking about Darkness, Spooky Viego, the Sentinel Control.
Well, here we go. This could just get Aftershocked right off the cut here. I mean, the problem is you still are going to have Elise coming in. So I guess it's like, do I hit Elise or do I hit the Buru Sentinel? And either one seems like an okay pick. You're going to be kicking yourself if you kill the Elise and then Buru Sentinel gets upgraded here. So
yeah,
you're stuck between a rock and a hard place. I can't really say which one is actually the better option to take care of here.
I would say that Buru Sentinel is 100% the better option.
Because of Gangplank trading. Yeah, I tend to agree.
Well, not only Gangplank trading, but it just represents more damage.
Yeah.
I don't think Elise is leveling in this deck. There's no Brood Awakenings. It's not really something you're playing towards. It's just Elise is there because she's a very good value unit, like how Draven is put into a lot of decks.
Well, that's the other consideration, though, right? Like, these Spiderlings aren't nothing versus, you know, Plunder that has a lot of units that either have 2 or 1 health. So this right here is going to deal with one of the Spiderlings. Also going to get one of the Plunder procs off, which is nice. We have an Officer that could come down next turn, so we'll see if Most Wanted is going to make a difference again in this game.
You really want to see that card just pop off.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I want that card to be why this deck wins. Yeah, oh, yeah. Now, I like that Mystic Shot. You know, obviously the Plunder proc already came off, so it's like, well, why Mystic Shot it when they already got their Plunder? Like, it doesn't matter. At 16 health, you feel okay. 14 actually feels a lot worse than 16 versus a Plunder deck, and I don't think you can not care about your health when you get down to that point. Now, we do have some lifesteal in this deck, which you actually see in hand as well, so that should help, but I don't hate that Mystic Shot there. Another fearsome unit coming down. And honestly, Withering Mists here, I mean, if there's another unit like Crackshot or even the Betty Croker summoned and it hits the Idol, I mean, this is going to be a pretty big Withering Mist, but we get the pass. I like that pass a lot from Deriva.
There's really no great proactive play here. You're pretty sure TankBuster isn't ending the turn without attacking, just based on the units that they have on field. None of your units are effective blockers. We're actually going to Despair the Monkey Idol.
Hey!
0 damage, kill this unit.
Yeah, it's free. It's totally cool. All right. So essentially paying 4 mana to deal 3 damage, so just turn it into another Aftershock, I guess.
And because we do have a lot of first-time chatters, at least, I don't know how often you guys watch Legends of Runeterra. I don't know if you know what this card does. I don't know how new you are. Despair, you never see it. Pick a unit to strike your Nexus, then kill it. 4 mana slow spell. Also, Viego's Champion spell, not the most popular champion in the game. I don't want to sit here and talk about Despair and have half of chat be like, I've never seen that before. What are they talking about? What do you mean I can pay 4 mana to kill a unit?
All right, and because the monkey... Well, the monkey could have blocked the Spiderling, actually, so I guess we just value the card draw at this point a little bit more.
Yeah, I was supposed to Fortune Croaker can block the monkey.
The spider. And Monster Harpoon is going to take care of the 3/3, so that's going to be good on the side of Deriva. But yeah, I mean, this is like, if you look at the hand though, this is why I like Most Wanted. You're using all your resources. This officer comes down, it really starts to just give you a lot more options in hand.
Not only that, but like a 5 mana 4/5 is not terrible.
No, that's good. A 5 mana 4/5 that essentially gets you 1 card. Like, it's also draw. It's basically 5 mana 4/5 draw card at the end of when everything's said and done, right?
That is absolutely not what it is. But
it's a little bit more complicated.
There is a big difference between creating a card and drawing a card.
So actually, no. Sorry, it's to draw 2 cards because that's a created card. I'm thinking that you're spending 2 cards to get 3, but it's actually.
I thought you were counting just the Most Wanted that's generated as
no.
I was like, what are you gonna do? Rummage it? Is that why we play this card, so we can rummage away Most Wanted?
No. So really, you're just discarding 1 card and spending 5 mana to draw 3, which is not to mention the 4/5 body. So I do think it's an incredibly strong card.
I think you are grossly misrepresenting what this card does every time you try to make it sound good.
It's good. Just let it be. All right.
If it was good, it'd see play.
Well, it's seeing play, and it's the top cut Boulevard, so what now?
Touche!
Well, we got it. It's down. We're Boulevard's taking a look at the art.
From unloading silently into the street to prepping the ram, setup didn't take long. It was just a matter of waiting on Caitlin's cue. I don't know why I gave them that accent.
Yeah, what is that, like a Texas
Apparently he's
accent?
From Bilgewater. That's my Bilgewater accent.
Looking at the pictures is so much different having watched Arcane. Like it's very, very different. That's why I
haven't even finished Arcane.
I'm doing it tonight. Okay, I got 3 more episodes.
You're 2 days late.
Don't spoil it, chat. I'm not gonna look at chat. Don't do a damn thing to spoil it.
Yeah, we can't look at chat anymore.
No, I'm ignoring it. But here's the 4/5.
Coming over to the rewatch, right?
Yeah.
Where you live again? Drop the Addy.
Oh yeah. All right, and this is the other reason, right? So we mentioned the 4/5 body, especially versus something like Plunder. A 4/5 body is not easy to get rid of when you don't have Gangplank or Sejuani on field. It does a lot to trade with like 2 or 3 units on board.
There's a Monster Harpoon in hand. It's actually fairly easy to get rid of.
Yes, with units, with combat, right? So
yeah.
But like, I think you're okay if you get a Monster Harpoon used on an officer. You feel pretty good about that.
Aloof Travelers picked up. That can deal with one of these thermogenic beams, which are really what TankBuster has been leaning on in order to deal with a lot of these champions. I know Vengeance is in the deck, but I don't think there's a lot of Vengeance in the deck. Let me actually just check on that real quick.
So I think the consideration from TankBuster right now is, do I play the Mystic and then discard the Withering Mists, or do I just play Most Wanted on the Mystic? I like playing Most Wanted on the Mystic because I guess you have the Withering Mists to take. Basically, it's 2 Mystic shots in one. Not to mention
there's actually no Vengeance in this deck.
Yeah, so I do like playing Most Wanted.
Kill spell.
There's no Vengeance.
There's no Vengeance. There's 2 Despair.
Yeah. There's Ladros. We got part of the win condition in hand now. Yeah, I like discarding the Mystic Shot a lot. I think this Withering Mist eventually is going to get a decent amount of value.
Yeah, and look at all these crappy cards we drew. The second Elise.
And now it's Ladros, so we get the Thermo Beams. We keep the Thermos.
Yeah, look at this. Look at this Officer Squad doing nothing. Drawing me a Ladros just to get it discarded by my nabbed Aloof Travelers. What a card, man. What a card Aloof Travelers is. So good.
Aloof Travelers might be better.
On paper, good versus the meta. And of course, we're going to have not only Dreadway on the next turn for Deriva with no... Well, we've got the Thermo Beam, probably just going to immediately be spent off onto that Dreadway, but there is a Make It Rain that Deriva can play for 2 damage in response that will clear out Elise and the Burgeoning Sentinel if it lines up on them.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a pretty big deal, too. And I don't see any reason this turn doesn't go like that. I mean, now we have a Gangplank off the top. We could start with Gangplank instead of the Dreadway to keep more options open.
Not leveled yet, though.
Yeah.
And if you make it rain and miss, and Gangplank still isn't leveled, your turn is looking real suspect.
Yeah, and there's the Dreadway instead. So a second Gangplank now in hand. Things are starting to look up for Deriva, especially now that Ladros is Gonzo. It's going to be hard, I think, for TankBuster to close out the game.
Muppet?
What did you just say? I
said Ladros is a Muppet?
Oh. that took a second to register in my head. I was like, is he reading chat? Did they just make a comment? And I have no idea what just happened.
Nope, Gonzo.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, it took a second for me to register.
I can't tell you what Gonzo looks like, but I'm pretty sure that's the name of a Muppet.
I think that's the one with the big nose. It's like he's like blue with like a big red nose.
Oh, the blue one.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that's Gonzo.
Oh, okay. I actually know that one. Perfect Make It Rain hits, by the way. Just want to shout out to Deriva.
So
good players draw good cards. They also have good RNG.
Yep. That's how you do it. So if you guys are new to the game, there's spoilers.
There's your secret. Yeah, just draw better cards.
be better.
Lining up your Make It Rain and saying, what happens if I don't hit? Just hit.
3, 6, 7, 8 damage coming through. So this is dangerous territory for TankBuster here, and really unfortunate. I mean, I was really excited for this Sentinel deck, and right now it's just not having nearly as great of a game as it did earlier versus the Plunder deck. It's just kind of sputtering out here, having a problem.
Yeah, the Plunders have been very impactful here, because if we did not kill that Ladros and TankBuster had found their way into an atrocity, there's not a great answer from Deriva to deal with that. We'd have to keep a Keg on board and line up a Monster Harpoon onto the Ladros, which can be difficult to do. But it does look like Deriva shouldn't have too much of a problem cleaning up a 2-0 onto the Sentinel deck as the Gangplank does come down. We have another Thermogenic Beam to kill that, but the Keg is still going to be around, and that will be the rest of TankBuster's turn.
Yeah, and unfortunately not able to get this Kindred down, which I'm sure TankBuster probably wanted to get down here. I mean, slaying either the Keg or really anything is going to be huge here to start to deal with this wide board. But another Gangplank and Sejuani in hand. I mean, it's just not looking too hot right now. Yeah, at least get rid of the Keg. Chump block the Spiderling here, and Warning Shot for 2. Yeah. The Gangplank open attack, or not open, but Gangplank summon, followed by the attack alone, should close things out.
I mean, even an open attack from the Zap would end it, given Buster's hand state. Top deck's another Ladros, but I do think Deriva pretty likely to play a champion here. Even if Buster has a Ruination and fires it off, you're still going to have enough mana to redevelop the Black Market Merchant.
There is Withering Mists that can take care of the Zap and Yordle Grifter.
Right. Put you back to 6. Your entire board dies to Gangplank, and then
so
I think you die to Gangplank.
Yeah, I think you're still dead. So not going to do a whole lot. Oh, that feels... We've been sitting on this Withering Mist all game, too. And to me, this feels like a deck. Like, when you're going up against Plunder, it feels like Withering Mist should get a lot done. Like, there's a lot of 2 health followers. And we've just never able to pull the trigger until just now. And now we're a day late and a dollar short. It's just not going to do enough to save this game for us.
I mean, sometimes that's the imbalance that you find in control decks that play a lot of units, is your control spells are rather expensive. So something like Field of Rush is just playing a removal spell and passing for most of the game. But when you have your own game plan that you need to develop, and things like Kindred and Vi and Officer Squad that you need to throw down for 5 mana, it can be really hard to weave your removal spells into that. And just saying that, you know, it's more important to get the... I mean, most wanted is 5 mana. Sure, it draws you a card, but that is expensive. Or draws you 3 cards, rather, but it is expensive.
Oh, and the TankBuster, unfortunately, rip, getting 2-0'd by Deriva and falling in the top 8 in OLS 35.